So, Your Excellency, Ambassador Gebauer, thank you for being at this interview for CaleaEuropeana at this special occasion, and thank you for once again receiving us at your residence.
My great pleasure, Robert. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the invitation. So, Mr. Ambassador, we meet at a time of celebration for your country, especially, but also to the benefit of Europe. We have 34 years after the German reunification, but also 35 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall. Germany is seen as not just a pillar, but the pillar of European stability and prosperity. So therefore, when we see the far right coming first and second in different regional elections in Germany, and the shrinking that it's somehow happening in the coalition, of course it's an evolving process, we tend to worry here in our part of Europe, but also in Europe in general. Is it justified to be worried? Do we have something to worry about when it comes to German leadership in Europe?
Don't worry. Indeed, first of all, the unification, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the opening of the Iron Curtain is still up until today and for the future a cause of joy and of pride for us in Germany and for us in Europe, because it showed that people can overcome dictatorships and move towards free and liberal and open societies. I think this is still a success we can be proud of. You're right when you point out to the phenomenon of right-wing parties gaining strength in Germany in these regional elections that you have referred to, but also many other countries of Europe across the continent. And it's an expression of, I believe, growing insecurity, about an unease about the very many challenges that we have been facing over the last years: financial crisis, migration challenges, the pandemic, and now the brutal Russian aggression against Ukraine, with all the implications, rising energy costs, etc., and so on. So the rise of nationalistic right-wing parties is an expression of this uneasiness. At the same time, we see in Germany, but also across Europe, that the parties of the middle, the mainstream of the political arena is still the strongest part. We have no majorities for right-wing parties. And there is a clear belief by all of these parties that there is the need to continue on a pro-European, pro-transatlantic course. This is true for Germany and the other countries that I've mentioned. So a clear no to your answer. You need not worry. There is, of course, I understand that people question, but Germany will remain a pillar of stability in Europe.
Well, nowadays in the EU, we seem to have a problem fixer, a new problem fixer, and that's it. That is the Draghi report, of course, on the European competitiveness. The report launched by the former Prime Minister of Italy and the former President of the ECB, together with President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. And one to which to this report, German reactions were somehow diffused depending on different ministries and so on. And I want to know, how does Germany view the recommendations from the Draghi report when it comes to defense, when it comes to regulation, to digital, to climate, to all the aspects in which Europe is lagging behind when it comes to energy, when it comes to the global competition with China and also the US, of course.
I share your assessment in your question. Germany and Europe, all of us, we are facing many challenges. We sort of tend to lose ground when it comes to competitiveness, whether it be the US, whether it be China, whether it be other parts of the world, which is why we very strongly welcome the renewed focus on competitiveness. In this regard, the Draghi report is of utmost importance, and it is welcomed by Germany because this is the base to move ahead in Europe, and to move ahead not by simply adjusting here and there minor things, but by strongly changing course towards a more competitive-oriented policies. So in this sense, the Draghi report is very much welcomed. The areas that he's focusing on in his report: stronger innovation, the combination of a green transition with a stronger competitiveness, a strong focus on security and at the same time resilience. These are the key areas. Obviously, if you have a 300-400 page document, it's a heavy document and a very, very thoughtful one. There are many, many individual proposals, ideas that now will have to be discussed in the European framework. One issue obviously will be the question of financing this renewed focus on competitiveness. So we will, of course, see discussions. I don't see this as a weakness. I think it's a strength in Europe that we have the possibility to discuss. And by discussing, by striving for a compromise, we've always managed to take everybody on board. And I think this will be also the case when it comes to implementing the ideas of the Draghi report. So once again, we welcome it very much to have this report. And we're eager to now start into a speedy discussion on how to best take up the ideas and how to move forward in this regard.
If we look at the German leadership, but also at the German industry, when it comes to the issue of competitiveness, of strategic sovereignty, and so on, Germany has a term or that it says we want economic security as a broader umbrella. So under this position, what role do you see that Germany should play in shaping the future of Europe, using maybe this Draghi report as a starting point?
Economic security is a keen interest of not only Germany, but I assume pretty much every country on our continent and in the world. We have indeed put a strong emphasis on securing what we have achieved in Germany, in Europe, in a sense of decades of economic growth, of prosperity, of peace. We now feel and realize that a lot of what has made us strong is now under heavy pressure. When it comes to our industrial base in Europe, we realize that we have no guarantee for the future, that in the future we will still continue to be leaders in this or that segment and area. So the focus of today's time now, I think, is not only on security, but maybe even more on making sure that we regain our strengths, that we regain our competitiveness, that we manage to go through this transition, the green transition that of course is relevant and decisive when it comes to the future of our planet, that we go through this decision by keeping our strength and our base, because only then we will manage to shape the future in a positive way. So security is one angle, but I think you might add to it the economic innovation, the economic change that is necessary, the shaping of a transition which is necessary. And that implies that we also take bold decisions and courageous decisions, sometimes also take risks. Just leaning back and saving what we have will not do the trick for the next years to come.
Yeah, and on this part, I must confess that we have seen in recent weeks Germany on the spotlight on different topics. And another one which is also important for Romania is, of course, the issue of internal security and migration. We know that Germany has recently reintroduced border controls due to migration concerns, drawing criticism from Poland and Greece that it has somehow abolished the Schengen area. Of course, we know that these are political statements, but could you elaborate on the reasons behind this decision of Germany and how it fits within the broader EU framework for security?
Absolutely. Let me start by saying that Germany knows and fully believes in the need for a European answer to challenges that cross borders within Europe. We are very much benefiting from an openness on our continent, and that's why we always put a strong focus on finding European solutions, which is why we were very supportive of the adoption of the common European asylum policy package that has been adopted recently and is now to be implemented. What we've seen right now in the recent weeks in Germany, the reintroduction of border controls, has to do with the fact that there are many particular challenges for Germany and for German society in these last months and years, mainly security threats. We had terrible terroristic attacks recently that were committed in the context of irregular migration, so to speak. We have seen a very heavy burden on the financial situation of communities, also on the capacity to house refugees. We have right now in Germany 3.5 million refugees. That's quite a high number, even for a large country and a rich country like my country.
It's almost 4 to 5% of the
Absolutely,
population.
4% you might say, and that's so it just gives you an indication how challenging it is. So it was perceived to be necessary, and I agree with that we take temporarily also additional measures. The border controls that you've been referring to are not something new. We have these very frequently as a possibility in the Schengen Codex, for example, during the Euro 2024 Football Championship. The same is true for Paris, the Olympics. Germany, and in the case of Paris, France, introduced temporary border controls simply to manage the flow of fans, of supporters. There is a strong angle of security involved. Why? Because by controlling the borders, you make sure that terroristic threats or organized crime threats, human traffickers, cannot just freely move across the borders. And in this sense, also the recent decision by the German government has proven to be quite effective, and a number of, for example, human traffickers have been caught, and a number of irregular crossings have been stopped in this sense. The border controls are not to be compared with the border controls you still have, for example, between Romania and Hungary. There you have a border, everybody has to stop, every truck is checked, every visitor, every passenger has to show the passport. When we talk about border controls between Germany and the neighboring countries, it's more a broader network of making sure that you have a picture of who's crossing, and only individually people are stopped and checked. And I think in this sense, it's a much less invasive form of border controls than you have at the outside border of the Schengen border. And
it's based probably, as you were developing, on intelligence cooperation and sharing information within the Schengen area. Absolutely. With other countries.
Absolutely. This is key, and this is a key element also when it comes to how to best involve our neighbors. It only functions if we closely cooperate with our neighbors. The German politicians, those in charge, have started this process already of closely liaising with the neighboring countries. So the first remarks by some, I think, have already...
The Prime Minister of Poland, because he's a neighbor. And
yes, and I think in the meantime we have found ways to make sure that we explain better, that we make sure that there is no winner and loser in this game, but that we all join forces to tackle challenges that concern us all, because it's not a German problem or a Polish problem or an Austrian problem. There are issues that affect us all in Europe, and that's why cooperation is always key. So I wouldn't see these measures that have been introduced recently as aimed against anybody, but they're actually meant to be embedded in the European approach to tackle a challenging question, which is that of irregular migration. With regard to the Schengen area, I think you've implied it also in your question. What does it mean for Romania? Yeah, and how do we move forward there? Let me just reiterate that Germany continues to unwaveringly support Romania and Bulgaria when it comes to the lifting of the land border controls. I've said it before, but I would like to repeat it. Romania has done all its homework. Romania deserves to be in and not to be restricted in this regard. And that's why we will continue to fully support Romania. I believe that we will soon see the question of how the new Austrian government will position itself, and this then will hopefully open doors also with regard to this goal of Romania, which we fully support.
Do you see more windows of opportunities or potential obstacles when it comes to fulfilling this last piece of fully entering into Schengen by Romania and Bulgaria, because we still have land border controls? We've managed to enter Schengen area by air and also by sea.
Absolutely. These last two aspects, sea and air border controls being lifted, is a great success, which Romania has to be congratulated upon. But yes, the land border issue is a pressing one. I tend to be optimistic, which is why I say, yes, I see more opportunity. Again, it's not...
and less obstacles.
And less obstacles. But as a diplomat, you always have to be a believer in possibilities. And I can only compliment those in charge here in Romania on having taken a very prudent and professional and clear stance when it comes to negotiating with the partners. I think this will pay off. But again, of course, we have no guarantee, but I remain more an optimist on this topic.
And on this part, do you feel that you, as a major partner of Romania, can do something more than that you already did? And I'm asking you this because probably this topic of Romania and Bulgaria joining Schengen would not have been that high on the table if it wouldn't have been for Chancellor Scholz's speech in Prague.
I agree. He publicly stated 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, that he was clearly in favor of a speedy accession of Romania and Bulgaria into the Schengen room. So yes, I think Germany can take some credit for having been an active supporter. And active means not that when the decision is up for a vote, we raise our hand in favor of Romania, but that Germany in between worked hard on all the partners to achieve that goal for Romania. And why? Because Romania deserves it, but it is in the interest of Germany and of Europe to complete ourselves in this regard. So it's not merely an act of mercy, but it's in the interest of all of us. So Germany will continue to be actively supportive, and if there's a way to be helpful, also when it comes to convincing those that are still not yet convinced, Germany will do its part.
This subject of Romania and Bulgaria coming closer to Schengen was also a strategic decision after Romania, especially Romania, played a very important role in helping Ukraine, as also Germany did. And this moves me to the other topic, one that also Germany is somehow in the spotlight, because we know that Germany has been a strong supporter of Ukraine during the ongoing conflict caused by Russia. Germany is the second supporter after the US in terms of number and of financial figures, but also despite being criticized of a slower pace when it comes to delivering the military help and the recent reluctant position on sending long-range missiles with which Ukraine can strike the military targets inside the Russian territory. What has changed in Germany's approach to this support since the war began, and what will remain constant?
What we have seen, I think, right at the beginning of the Russian aggression against Ukraine with the famous Zeitenwende speech of the Federal Chancellor is a clear commitment of Germany to do whatever it takes, and as long as it takes, to support Ukraine in close liaison and cooperation with all our allies and partners. This is of utmost importance because we face a Russia which is not merely striving to conquer parts of Ukraine and then will be satisfied and stop. Russia has publicly declared on several occasions that it wants to turn back the clock, that it wants to re-establish the world order of the Cold War, which means that not only Ukraine is in danger, but also the ability to choose its fate of Romania and the other Central and Eastern European countries are endangered by Russia saying we want to turn back the clock. So if we want to avoid that Russia has a say on the future of Romania's NATO membership, then we must stop Russia. And we must do everything for Putin not to be successful in this campaign against Ukraine. Simply stopping it would not help us. It would simply prolong the conflict. So it is a wise and right approach by Germany, Romania, and all its partners and allies to support Ukraine the best way we can. You've pointed out to the fact, and I can only agree, that Germany has been a very staunch supporter in these last 2.5 years. In terms of numbers, we are indeed the second largest donor militarily, but also with regard to other help, goods, financial support, and so on and so forth. The same is true for Romania. I applaud and praise the recent decision to give a Patriot system to Ukraine. This is literally saving lives and supporting a partner and neighbor in need, and that's something that cannot be appreciated high enough. What we will see in the future, and you're referring also to debate about long-range weapons, delivery of those, or the agreement to use those within the core land of Russia. How I see things is you have as a political leader these days, very complex decisions to make. You have to take into consideration what is available, what do I need for the defense of my country, of the NATO territory, what effects will it have if I do this and that. The German Chancellor and the German government have always publicly stated that for them and for the Chancellor in particular, he says it's most relevant to liaise closely with the partners, not to have our unity of support for Ukraine somehow be
Dismantled.
split and dismantled. So he puts a great emphasis on closely liaising with the partners, in particularly, of course, the US, France, UK. You've seen this when the debate about the battle tanks came up, and Germany acted in concert with the others by delivering
with the US,
also with the US, the Abrams, and of course Germany delivering the Leo tanks. So this is, I think, an approach that is a very understandable one. And this is also marking the debate about the long-range weapons, about the granting the right to use them here or there. From outside, it's often very difficult to have the full picture on what will happen. But I remain very convinced that there will be wise decisions taken, decisions in the interest of Ukraine, of Europe, of Germany. But these decisions are on the table every day, and there's the development that we have been seeing over the last 2 years in terms of what has been delivered. So again, I can only sort of express my understanding for a prudent and sober approach, which does not rush into quick decisions, hasty decisions, without coordinating closely with the partners.
So practically, Germany pleads for a more coordinated and allied decision, not on bilateral or lower level of...
Germany indeed is a great friend of this kind of approach, which we have seen in the last years and which has made our Western answer to the Russian aggression, I believe, a strong one. And I think we will continue to act in this way. This will always be the German position. I, in this sense, remain very sure that there will not be a change in the German course of action, as you've asked in your question, but a continuation in this sense.
In an interview for the German public radio, Chancellor Scholz spoke about a future peace conference between Ukraine and Russia. We all know that everyone almost agrees that the future peace summit must have Russia on the table because it's the aggressor,
yes,
and it should be there to discuss. And Chancellor Scholz said, and I quote, "I believe that now is the moment that when we must discuss how we get out of this war situation faster than the current impression is." How should we interpret this, and how we establish when we have reached that moment?
What he said, of course, he speaks for himself, in the terms of words stand for himself, so it's difficult for me to interpret him, because it would not do his words the right, given the right impression. But what I can tell you is that we realize that this war, having taken place already 2.5 years, of course, has claimed many, many victims. We see that you have no guarantee that Ukraine can continue this courageous fight without limits forever. And we also sense that there are political developments here or there and elections that will not make us sure of where we are standing in the next 2, 3, 4 years. So I think it's wise, and that's why it's right what the Chancellor said, to do as much as we can to see if there is a peaceful way out of this war. But at the same time, and the Chancellor makes this clear every time he expresses his views on this conflict, on this Russian aggression, we cannot give in to a peace of, a dictated peace, dictated by Russia, a peace on Russia's terms. This would not pacify and liberate Ukraine. It would make Ukraine a Russian dependency or a slavery situation. And in particular, merely stopping the fighting at this moment would not give any guarantee that the fighting would not continue at the later stage after Russia has regained its military strength and capacity. So whatever solution we are working for, it must be a solution that brings stable peace and security to Europe and to Ukraine in particular. So the tendencies by some people, or the hope of some people, say if you just call it quits and let the weapons be quiet, then we'll have peace again. This belief is naive. Russia will not stop. We have seen it in the past that after the latest aggressions of Russia, the annexation of the Crimea and then the invasion into the Donbass, these efforts of pacifying conflicts were only valid for some time, while Russia used that time to rebuild its troops, its military capacities, and then again waged a full-fledged aggression. So we must find a way of pacifying, of finding peace, but one that is not leading to the conflict breaking out again, but leading to a stable peace.
And nonetheless, the conflict that Russia waged against Ukraine has been a wake-up call for us in terms of defense and also in terms of war economy, as many European leaders already said. And if we move from the European spectrum, the help for Ukraine, and moving towards the bilateral relation between Germany and Romania, we could say that somehow Romania and Germany have responded to that call when it comes to joint cooperation, when it comes to joint European financing for different types of weapons and so on. And moving to this part, we know that this bilateral relationship between Romania and Germany has grown stronger in recent years. What are the key areas where you see further growth, particularly in the economic and security sector, of course?
The bilateral relations between Germany and Romania are indeed as close and I would say as important as ever before. We are allies and partners in NATO, in the EU, and we have broadened the cooperation and the exchanges on all levels. On the very top level of our political leaders, with our Chancellor having visited Romania twice in the last 2 years, our federal president having been here twice in the last years, our foreign minister again also here twice. So this is a density of our contacts that you have not seen at any stage before. So that's a positive development and one that is very important because Romania and Germany are very much in sync when it comes to analyzing the situation and have a great potential to broaden the cooperation. This is what you've been referring to with your question, the cooperation areas where we can even intensify our going together. I see in particular in the area of energy and of defense. Energy, why? Because Romania is home to so many different energy sources, conventional ones, renewable ones, and is at the same time at the crossroads of energy lanes, pipelines, and connections between the Asian continent and the rest of Europe. So I am very much convinced Romania will play a crucial role as an energy provider and energy hub for Europe. And given the energy needs that also we have in Germany with our rich industry, it's an obvious opportunity we can tap into to broaden this energy cooperation.
So we could consider this energy cooperation as the future rising star within the bilateral relationship?
Oh, I'm sure it will be a major pillar of our bilateral relations. I'm very positive because it will complement the already existing broadness of our cooperation in the automotive sector, in retail, in so many other areas where we very much closely cooperate. Germany, as you know, is the largest investor and the largest trade partner for Romania, and we both benefit extremely from this partnership. The second area is certainly the defense industry that you have also mentioned in your question. It's a tremendous need for Europe to beef up its capacities to defend ourselves, and we have spoken about Ukraine. Let me reiterate just once more, it's about helping Ukraine, but it's not an act of mercy. It's about also securing our liberty and our openness against the Russian aggression. So anybody who feels that Russia would stop after conquering Ukraine is obviously wrong and naive. Russia will continue on its...
Moldova might be next.
Yeah, and Moldova might be next, and other countries are under threat again at the same time. So we need to make sure that we strengthen our defense capacities. The only thing that will stop Putin is the realization that he will not be able to do any harm in Europe and against European interests, including Moldova. So we need to strengthen our capacities, our defense industry. A lot of programs have been set on track in this regard. The European Defense Industry Plan and strategy that are just being debated in Brussels and implemented indicate where we are heading. The Commission, the new Commission, will put a strong focus on this area. And you have rightly pointed out that there are already programs where European money is offered to joint ventures of European partners. Germany and Romania are also benefiting from these programs. There are a number of projects involving German companies, defense industry companies, and Romania. And we are working hard on them to make these come to life, in a sense, to see German-Romanian corporations producing propellant powder, ammunition, tanks, whatsoever here in Romania. This would be an excellent news in terms of business. It would be an excellent news in terms of also having technology transfer and establishing Romania as a defense industry hub. But in particular, it would be excellent news when it comes to making sure that Europe is strong enough to defend itself.
You gave us some pretty interesting headlines when it comes to German and Romanian cooperation. And coming to the last question, we know that Romania is heading towards a significant political change after the upcoming elections. And I'm saying significant political change because we have both presidential and parliamentary elections. The presidential era of President Iohannis will come to its end after 2 mandates allowed by the Constitution. How do you foresee this transition shaping Romania's relationships with the EU, NATO, and particularly with Germany? And in what ways do you expect Romania's new leadership to approach its commitments within NATO, in the EU, and also Germany?
An interesting year for Romania indeed, with many, many elections that have taken place, that will take place towards the end of the year, and of course we are closely watching and following. Romania, for the last years, has been, in the international context, a very stable and reliable partner in the EU, in the transatlantic alliance. And it's certainly part of the legacy of President Klaus Iohannis that he shaped this stable course and that he stood for a reliable and pro-Western, pro-Atlantic Romania. So the change will be coming. The change will be coming at the end of the year, and we believe that there will be not a change in this perspective and in this course of action vis-à-vis the EU and the transatlantic alliance. Of course, I have no idea who will win the presidential race. A lot of contenders. I cannot foresee how the parliamentary elections will evolve, but we have a very good feeling about pretty much all of the candidates standing for a pro-European, pro-transatlantic course, which is necessary, which is in our interest, and which is in the interest of Romania. So we are rather relaxed about the specific outcome of the elections, because we believe that it is the choice of the Romanian people, no matter whom they vote for, no matter what party they vote for, but it is the choice of the Romanian voters to stay on track of this pro-European, pro-NATO track also in the future.
Your Excellency, thank you for the interview, and happy National Day.
Thank you so much for the interview.